Siobhan Divigno, and I'm your facilitator for today. I need to move on now to Linda Waldman. Thank you very much. She is a research fellow in the Health and Nutrition Cluster and also a colleague of Sophie Marsden. And I believe she is going to speak next. So over to you, Linda.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you very much for this opportunity to talk today. I'm also going to talk about how a shift in research practice can impact on the capabilities of researchers in the future. And I'm going to do this by focusing on two things. I'm going to talk firstly about an online course, which is one of the arcade courses that Sophie has just been talking about. And then secondly, I'm going to talk about some research being undertaken in Bangladesh. Both of these two examples are linked to digital technology and health. Okay, so talking more about an online course. We decided to do a course entitled mHealth, Health Systems and Development. And we took this on as an opportunity to learn more about new technologies and what this might mean for research and teaching. So this course examines mHealth, which is really talking about mobile phones and other portable digital devices for health purposes. So it examines mHealth in relation to health systems and development. And it asks how mHealth fits into health systems in low and middle income countries, looking particularly at issues such as regulation, politics, policy, knowledge, gender relations, and so forth. And it tries to examine change and transition by trying to understand how innovation is being used and what pathways of change might be taking place. In producing this course, I wanted to bring together all my lecturing experience and bundle it into this course and use it to make this course a really good product. So we started off with 6 lectures, which is perhaps a small number of lectures, but we had reasons for doing this, including the fact that I wanted to make them as good as possible. And as Sophie has already mentioned, we quickly learned that we couldn't just film ourselves giving a lecture to our students and put it online. So my expectation in developing this course is that these core lectures will be the most utilized part of the course and will be the things that people turn to first and probably most often. But even though this is an online course and one which people will do independently and in self-study, I wanted to give it a feel of a university course. I wanted it to feel to people doing this course as though their lectures were embedded in other aspects of learning. And in order to do that, I tried to give as much complementary material as possible. So there are essential readings, there are additional readings structured around topics. There's a range of different kinds of exercises that people can do. There's some model answers, and there's some expert views linked to the course. And it remains an open-ended question how much these aspects of the course will be used or not. So why do this? Why do a course on mHealth, and why think about it in relation to our work? Well, as I said initially, I wanted to do this course partly for my own learning about capacity building and how new technologies can help us think about this. But there were other reasons as well. To start doing this course, I started by both looking at what mHealth courses were available online and doing a lot of online courses. And what I found was that a lot of the mHealth courses focused on the technology, on the mHealth intervention itself, or on information systems, informatics, how digital technology can help you generate information. Very few of these online courses examine questions relating to development issues, such as poverty, such as what low and middle income contexts might mean in relation to mHealth, such as questions of politics or power relations and things like that. And in addition, very few of these courses looked at sociological theory in relation to mHealth. So we wanted to bring to bear some of the sociology that underlies things like regulation, policy, behavioral change, gender, and knowledge. A lot of these kinds of things were largely absent from these courses, and really basic questions like whose knowledge counts, whose knowledge might be trusted, were not part of these courses. So that was our intent. In order to do this, we faced, or certainly I faced, a steep learning curve. We had to think about how to pitch a lecture. as Sophie suggested, we moved into 3 10-minute slots rather than a 2-hour marathon. I had to learn how to talk to an imaginary audience. We had to learn how to make the course widely acceptable. We had to learn about Creative Commons and copyright. I had to learn not to put too much text onto my PowerPoint slides. So we had a lot to learn as we went along. There were also a number of challenges that we had to face. I certainly underestimated the amount of work that was involved in producing a course like this. I also underestimated how hard it would be to get my colleagues to commit to an actual recording date. When you teach in real life, there are a lot of students and the lecture starts and you're forced to walk into the lecture room and give the lecture. When you set your schedule and plan a time to record a lecture, what we found was that many people cancelled and said, no, I can't do it this week, I'm not ready, maybe next week. So that was a real challenge for us. And there are still questions remaining about the revisions that we can do to the course and the lifespan of a course of this nature. We'll be testing the course next year, between February and March next year, and we're very excited to see how that turns out and what kind of feedback we get. And we're also already starting to explore how we might think about this course as a mobile phone course rather than a computer or internet course, in order to allow access to those people who use the mobile phone to access the internet. Underlying this course was a research project which really investigated how people used ICTs to find health information in Bangladesh. We were interested to know how poor people were changing their ways of trying to find health information because of this new digital landscape. And we were really interested to know if things like changing ICT infrastructure, changing access, changing policies might enable poor people to better access health information, and if they could find ways to do this. So this is a really complex issue, and it was one about which not much was known. So we chose to tackle it in a very interdisciplinary and mixed method way. So we had quantitative surveys, qualitative interviews and focus group discussions, we had transect walks, we had a range of other qualitative methods that we planned and used. We started, and it's also very interdisciplinary. So we have engineers on this project, anthropologists, nutritionists, doctors, and development specialists. And we do all work together in a very collaborative way. Now, the whole area of mHealth in Bangladesh and elsewhere is a very new emergent area for research. In Bangladesh, there's loads of projects that are coming on board. Projects such as Mama, which is for pregnant mothers, is very well known, where they receive health messages through their mobile phones. There's 6 different mobile phone companies, each of which has its own health helpline, and so each has its own mHealth aspect to it. There are lots of NGOs and other government initiatives and projects. So there are loads and loads of pilot projects. There are lots of very big ambitions, and there are lots of reports of very positive outcomes. So there's enormous potential and enormous opportunities for change in the mHealth environment. And that has very significant implications for poor people. And at the same time, there are a lot of gaps that exist in policy, in practice, and in social science research. And in our project, we wanted to try and explore some of these gaps in a little bit more detail. We started off by trying to apply our holistic and analytical methods in this digital age. We started off by doing qualitative scoping studies. So we visited people and spoke to them in their homes, in their places of work. We spoke to key informant stakeholders and others about mobile phones. And we learned a lot. We learned, for example, as we were told frequently, that everyone in Bangladesh, even the beggars, have mobile phones. We were told, and we were constantly reminded, how strongly mHealth and digital health was being supported by the Bangladeshi government. So in these interviews with about 46 people, we explored all sorts of dynamics in relation to mobile phones. And that qualitative research, that scoping work, then fed into a survey, a quantitative survey of 2,500 odd people in urban, peri-urban and rural areas. In doing that survey, we used digital technology to do the survey, and that was an amazing innovation for us. So the survey happened very, very quickly, and within a month we had early data available to us, much, much quicker than had we done the survey manually on paper and had to feed those results into the computers. As soon as a household was surveyed, we could already begin to see the data, and we could watch it coming in as the survey was being done. So that was really, really interesting and really helpful to us. And what we found doing the survey was that people were using multiple SIM cards. For some young men, up to 7 SIM cards, which they were using to manage different relationships and to take advantage of different offers being made by mobile phone companies. We found that people had an incredibly sophisticated knowledge of the costs and the contracts that they had and how to use their phones to make the best, to the best advantage. So we found that people were deliberately allowing their contracts to expire so that the mobile phone companies would give them a new special offer at discounted rates, things like that. So that was all really, really interesting. Having done that, we then did the survey to try and get a sense of what was happening quantitatively and how many people were using mobile phones for health information seeking. And we were really surprised by our survey results. We found that actually very, very few people were using their mobile phones for health information seeking. So that led us to go back to our research question and think about it again and to say, well, why is this? Why do we have so few people actually using their phones when our qualitative work seemed to suggest that people were very sophisticated about their phones? And we know that health and access to good health is a big issue in Bangladesh. So we then followed this up with additional research, trying to find out more. And in this additional research, we targeted very specific categories of people that we thought might be using their mobile phones differently. So we did another quantitative survey of 800 college students, and we did qualitative work with college students, with garment workers, with particular categories of people where we thought they might be using their phones in different kinds of ways. So in doing this research, we had a couple of challenges which are particularly interesting in relation to the question about digital technologies and how digital technologies can shape the capabilities of researchers in today's era. So the first was timeline challenges. Our first survey was done in 2012. And as I said, the results came in very, very quickly and we could see what was happening. And the digital world moves very fast. But academics don't move very fast. And despite all being very committed to this project and all working in an interdisciplinary way, it took us a long time to process the data and to move on from it. So in a sense, collecting the data was quick, but analyzing the data, making sense of it, and making decisions was a lot slower. And in part, that's because in an interdisciplinary project, we all only have small bits of time to work on the project, and that slows down our analysis. It also means that making comparisons between the first survey in 2012 and the second survey in 2015 are very difficult, given the rate of change in digital technology. We also faced challenges in how we asked our questions in relation to health information. So in the first survey, we asked people, and these are not the exact words, but the gist is, we asked people, do you use your mobile phone for health information seeking? And the answer was largely, no, we don't. When we did qualitative interviews with college students, we said, do you use your mobile phones for health information seeking? And again, the answer was largely no. But when we asked, do you use your mobile phones for sexual health information? The answer was more generally yes. And in the second qualitative phase of work, where we were doing interviews with young people, we asked them, what do you use your phone for? And the answer there was, we use it for skincare, we use it for diet, we use it for fitness. And that raises all sorts of questions about whether this is health information seeking, whether this is lifestyle and fashion. How do we consider and think about this kind of data in health in digital technology? So there's a really big push nowadays to think about and to use and to analyze readily available digital data. But we're also very interested about data that is about how people use their digital devices. So I would warn us against being too seduced by what's available online, and to remember to focus on the users and think about why people are using digital technology and how. So we found in our research that people were using their phones very creatively. They weren't just using their phones to look up health information seeking, but rather they were using it to contact family members or other individuals who could help them make a personal connection to a doctor or a particular healthcare providers. Now, again, there's an awful lot known about the digital divide, and we could expect, and we did expect, to find that women were largely excluded from mobile phones. But actually, we found much more interesting things. We found that when we looked at older forms of technology, such as television health programs, that women were also the most excluded from that category of information. And we found a real distinction between younger women and older women, both in terms of mobile phone ownership, in terms of skill, and in terms of health information seeking. Now, generally, one assumes that one should be able to trust the healthcare provider, but what does this mean when the provider is online and when it's not obvious who this may be, or whether the information or the products being provided do or don't have medical and scientific justification? A lot of that is obscured when looking for information online. And what we found in Bangladesh is that most people tended to trust television adverts linked to health issues rather than online technology, because this was a source of information that they understood to be controlled by the government, and they trusted that the government wouldn't allow untrue information to be disseminated. So that was more trustful than ICTs and online searching. But what does it mean when we talk about trust and health information seeking, when we realize that most college students are getting their health information from social media sites like Facebook? And this health information is communicated through a system of likes and dislikes and news feeds, rather than through the conventional systems that we would expect in health and in health systems. So that's a very brief overview of what we've been doing and what I've been doing on this work. I really would like to thank the organizers. I really welcome this opportunity to share some of this research and online learning with all of you. And I would encourage all of those who are interested in this work and who would like to follow up to get in touch with us. So on the next slide, I'd just like to say thank you and give you my contact details.